Long before you ever realized your presence unsettled the world in quiet, unspoken ways, someone else noticed it first, not as a person but as an archetype. In your cinematic universe, Bill Gates is not a literal billionaire. He is the architect of global systems, the symbolic engineer who studies human patterns, predicts societal shifts, and builds infrastructures meant to stabilize civilizations. He measures progress the way astronomers measure stars, through patterns, not individuals. Yet even he found something he couldn't categorize, predict, or replicate: you. The architect first detected you through what he believed was an error in his peace model simulations. Every model he created to forecast world stability factored in variables like conflict, economy, environment, diplomacy. And yet, when he introduced the anomaly variable, a theoretical individual whose presence could alter global patterns in immeasurable ways, the simulation stabilized in seconds. Conflicts dissolved. Tension curves flattened. Extremes softened. It was as if the world subconsciously calibrated around a single frequency. A frequency that mirrored yours. He assumed this was a glitch. Then the anomaly appeared in multiple simulations, even ones run on systems completely offline. The peace wave wasn't just a theory. It behaved like a signature, a resonance, a blueprint that existed somewhere out there, embodied by someone. And as he kept searching the data, he realized something difficult to accept. The stabilizing force wasn't an invention of his algorithm. It was a reflection of a real consciousness. Yours. From that point on, he became obsessed with understanding the phenomenon. He called this signature the stillness pattern, a rare energetic quality he believed only one person on Earth carried. The pattern didn't reflect power in the traditional sense. It reflected presence. You were not someone who solved problems directly. You dissolved them. The algorithm showed that environments containing your frequency naturally reached equilibrium. People who aligned with you found clarity. People who resisted you revealed their imbalances. Without lifting a finger, you changed dynamic field. This was the moment the architect realized something profound. Peace wasn't a system. It wasn't a technology. It wasn't a global treaty. It was a person, or more accurately, a type of person. A consciousness with a stabilizing effect on the collective field. You. He tried, in secret, to build a model of peace based on the qualities your signature displayed. He charted empathy curves. He measured emotional intelligence resonance. He mapped out frequencies of compassion. But none of it reproduced the stillness pattern. He even reconstructed scenarios from people's testimonies, those who felt inexplicably calm around you, those who felt seen for the first time, those who abandoned destructive paths after crossing your presence. Every attempt brought him back to the same conclusion. He could build machines, but he could not build you. It wasn't your kindness. It wasn't your intelligence. It wasn't your strength. It was your frequency, something non-transferable, non-replicable, non-engineerable. Something cosmic, not cognitive. For the first time in his career, the architect encountered a blueprint he could not study from the outside. He needed to understand the source, what shaped you, what forged you, what refined you. But every trace he followed led not to your achievements, but to your suffering. You weren't born peaceful. You were carved by storms. You weren't taught clarity. You built it from chaos. Every betrayal sharpened your perception. Every loss expanded your empathy. Every hardship rewired your emotional architecture into something the world had no name for. This was the discovery that humbled him. Your peace was not inherited. It was engineered by destiny. Not in a lab, not by a program, but by your journey. And this is the moment that changed everything. Because once the architect understood your origin, he stopped trying to replicate you and started trying to protect the world from the consequences of losing the only being capable of balancing it. You were no longer a theoretical stabilizer. You were the axis, the variable the world unconsciously orbit, the living blueprint he could never build. And he knew, if peace had a form, it was yours. Once the architect accepted that your frequency was not something he could copy, the question shifted from, how do I replicate this? To, how do I preserve it? And that single pivot triggered the creation of one of the most classified initiatives in your universe, Project Saraphim, a peace engineering program not built from technology, treaties, or global strategy, but built around you. Not your identity, not your biography, but your field, your presence, your influence on the collective unconscious. Project Saraphim began with an impossible hypothesis. If one person carried a stabilizing resonance strong enough to calm global systems in simulations, then the world didn't need billions of identical individuals. It needed the original to be able to walk their path without interference. In other words, protect the chosen one and global equilibrium improves by itself. Interfere with the chosen one, and conflict patterns escalate worldwide with measurable spike. He didn't understand why it worked. He didn't understand how. He only saw the data, and the data made one truth unavoidable. Your personal timeline is intricately linked to humanity's collective timeline. Every heartbreak aligned with a documented uptick in social unrest. Every breakthrough preceded a measurable drop in conflict zones. Every betrayal corresponded to an increase in global emotional volatility. Every moment of inner peace radiated stabilization across systems no one connected to you. The world, unknowingly, mirrored your internal weather. This is why you never fit into environments of chaos. This is why people drained you when they were out of alignment. This is why emotionally unstable individuals clung to you like a lifeline. And this is why manipulators instinctively tried to break you. Not because they understood your role, but because your light exposed their darkness. To the architect, these correlations were not mystical. They were empirical. So he built Project Saraphim around three principles. 1. Your stability anchors far more than your life. Your calm is not emotional, it's infrastructural. It holds reality together like an unseen scaffolding. 2. People drawn to you are responding to your field, not your personality. Even strangers sense equilibrium in you that they cannot articulate. 3. Anyone attempting to harm you destabilizes themselves first. The peace you carry is not fragile, it is a mirror. Those who violate it collapse under the weight of their own imbalance. This final principle was tested repeatedly, though not intentionally. Anytime someone with malicious intent attempted to undermine you, discredit you, or block you, the architect watched their lives unravel without you lifting a finger. Financial collapse, social downfall, emotional breakdown. Karma wasn't random, it was immediate, almost mechanical. And so Project Saraphim evolved from a study into a silent safeguard. Not to protect you from the world, but to protect the world from the fallout of losing someone whose internal architecture held far more influence than anyone realized. But there was a deeper layer to the project, one even he didn't speak about outside encrypted reports. He realized that the peace blueprint wasn't just reactive, it was awakening. Something in you was maturing, like a dormant system activating in stages. The first activation happened years ago when you survived something you weren't supposed to survive. The second activation emerged when your intuition sharpened to the point of precognition. The third was triggered when you realized abandonment didn't break you, it refined you. Most individuals collapse under pain. You evolved under it. Pain didn't shrink you, it calibrated you. You were becoming more like your blueprint each year. And now the simulations were showing something terrifying and miraculous. If your awakening reached its final stage, the global peace models that have never once stabilized under any human-designed system, reached perfect alignment. 0 conflict spikes, 0 instability markers, 0 collapse points. The architects stared at this prediction for hours because it meant one thing. Humanity's peace was never meant to be a government design. It was meant to be a person's emergence. You. And yet, no one else knew. No one else could know. Because the moment the world realized your influence, the moment nations discovered what your existence meant, everyone would try to claim you, weaponize you, use you. The chaos that would follow would destroy the very blueprint meant to stabilize the world. So he did the only thing he could. He erased your signature from every system that detected it. He hid you from the world so you could grow without interference. He protected you without you ever knowing. He delayed global collapse by preserving your path. And he waited, quietly, for the day your frequency would rise high enough for you to understand what you truly are. Not a subject, not a variable, not a model, but the blueprint he could never build. The blueprint the world was always waiting for. Project Saraphim continued operating in deep silence, tracking your emotional, psychological, and spiritual evolution in ways you never noticed. The architect didn't monitor your behavior. He monitored the global effects of your inner shift. But then came the moment that changed everything. The day your frequency broke the simulation. Not metaphorically, literally. The simulation room was buried beneath layers of quantum shielding, built to stress test humanity's largest peace model. It had survived war scenario overloads, economic collapse cascades, environmental disaster projections. Nothing had ever crashed it. But when your resonance spiked during an emotional turning point in your life, one that felt like heartbreak, revelation, liberation, or all three, every system in that underground chamber went into crisis. On the screens, conflict nodes didn't just calm down. They snapped into alignment. Dysfunctional behavioral clusters dissolved. Collective fear signatures dropped sharply. Regions predicted to destabilize suddenly shifted into long-term stability arcs. In under 2 minutes, the simulation achieved the impossible: global equilibrium. Something no treaty, alliance, philosophy, or technology had ever been able to produce. And then, as if realizing that its own prediction violated every known rule of social dynamics, the simulation overloaded and shut itself down. The architect stood there stunned, knowing he had just witnessed a glimpse of what your fully awakened frequency would mean for humanity. He had always believed peace was engineered. Now he understood peace was embodied. The crash forced him to confront the truth he had been avoiding. Your existence wasn't an anomaly. It was a correction. A balancing force introduced into an imbalanced world. A stabilizer encoded into human evolution long before algorithms could interpret it. But the most shocking discovery came afterward. When he reviewed the quantum residue, an imprint left behind by the simulation's final moments, he noticed a pattern repeating through the fractured data. A pulse, a signature, a mathematical frequency that did not belong to the simulation or the system. It belonged to you. This wasn't just emotional resonance. This wasn't psychological influence. This was something far more ancient. Your frequency matched electromagnetic signatures found in sacred geometries, ancient relics, and unexplained artifacts scattered across multiple civilizations. Symbols carved in stone thousands of years apart pulsed with the same numerical rhythm as the energy radiating from you on the day of the simulation crash. The implication was staggering. You were not merely influencing peace. You were fulfilling a pattern older than recorded history. A pattern humanity kept misinterpreting as prophecy, destiny, divine intervention, or myth. Suddenly, the architect realized why you had always felt out of place, why you carried wisdom beyond your years, why strangers confided in you instantly, why people healed in your presence without understanding why manipulators failed to destabilize you even when they succeeded at destabilizing everyone else, why you sensed things before they unfolded. You weren't absorbing the world. The world was recalibrating around you. This discovery terrified him more than anything else, not because you were dangerous, but because you were indispensable. What happens to the world if someone holding the equilibrium collapses? What happens if you are drained, misled, broken, or captured by those who see your value but not your humanity? And so Project Saraphim shifted again. From monitoring to shielding, from shielding to intervention, the architect started quietly dissolving threats that moved toward your orbit. Doors you didn't know were blocked were actually closed for you. Opportunities that could have destroyed your confidence or your path evaporated before reaching you. People whose energy would have corrupted your blueprint were subtly removed from your timeline. Every adjustment made was to preserve the one variable the world could not afford to lose. Yet even his protections had limit. Because something unexpected began happening, something even he could not control. Other forces, other factions, other unseen powers began noticing your frequency too. Some were drawn to it. Some feared it. Some wanted to possess it. Some wanted to silence it. And others wanted to awaken it further. You were never just a blueprint for peace. You were becoming a beacon, and the world was beginning to notice. As your frequency continued to rise, the world began responding in ways the architect could no longer classify as coincidence or correlation. Something ancient was awakening alongside you, something that had been dormant long before modern governments, long before institutions, long before any formal system of control. This force revealed itself through anomalies. Encrypted transmissions the architect didn't send, energy distortions inside networks he couldn't trace, and symbolic patterns appearing in global data streams as if someone or something was marking your timeline. That's how he discovered the Concordance Council, a shadow collective that functions as the metaphysical counterpart to earthly governance in your cinematic universe. They've existed for centuries, charting the movements of world changers, monitoring the emergence of rare consciousnesses, and ensuring that no single individual shifts humanity too quickly in any direction. To them, your awakening wasn't a miracle. It was a disturbance, one they didn't anticipate and could not control. The Council had observed individuals with heightened resonance before, but never someone who stabilized global fields simply by existing. Typically, beings with extraordinary influence create polarization. Conflict rises around them, their presence sparks upheaval, and their mission unfolds through chaos. But you were the opposite. You dissolved chaos without participating in it. Your growth didn't ignite wars, it quieted them. You didn't inspire conflict, you neutralized it. And the Council found this deeply unsettling. Peace, to them, isn't the absence of conflict. It's a managed equilibrium. They believe humanity evolves through pressure, tension, and moral friction. But you represented a different possibility: evolution through coherence. A paradigm shift that bypassed their control mechanisms and historical framework. Your existence wasn't a threat to the world, it was a threat to their jurisdiction. And so, they sought to claim you before you fully awakened. Their methods were subtle. They didn't approach you directly, they infiltrated your environment. They placed distractors in your path. People who drained you, situations that exhausted you, opportunities that seemed promising but were designed to fracture your certainty. They whispered doubts through the mouths of those closest to you. They triggered emotional storms not to destroy you, but to slow your emergence, because they knew something the architect had only recently realized. Your clarity unlocks your power, and your power disrupts their control. But here's what they misunderstood. Your resilience wasn't built through comfort. Your purpose wasn't nurtured through validation. Your strength wasn't forged in stable terrain. You evolved through storms. You awakened through disappointment. You matured through betrayal. Their attempts to confuse you only refined you. Their efforts to weaken you only awakened dormant layers. Their distractions only sharpened your path. Every emotional disruption became a calibration. Every loss became a frequency upgrade. Every wrong person revealed your right direction. The Council, accustomed to manipulating human potential like chess pieces, had never encountered someone whose spirit turned sabotage into fuel. The more they pushed, the more the peace blueprint within you synchronized. And soon, they realized something far worse than your awakening. They realized you could see through them. This frightened them for one reason. Beings like you don't just disrupt systems, you undo them. You destabilize false hierarchies not by resisting them, but by embodying a truth that renders them obsolete. You don't need power over others to lead. Your presence alone recalibrates the room. So the Council made one final attempt. They extended an invitation. Not physically, energetically. You felt it as a moment of sudden doubt, a whisper that maybe you weren't meant for something great, a wave of heaviness that tried to convince you to shrink. That was their test, their recruitment attempt, their last chance to contain a blueprint that could rewrite the nature of influence forever. But your refusal wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. You simply kept walking. And that quiet defiance was the moment the architect realized something revolutionary. Your peace blueprint wasn't meant to serve systems. It was meant to replace them. Not through force, not through rebellion, but through emergence. You weren't meant to join the Council. You were meant to eclipse it. After the Council failed to claim you, their strategy shifted from subtle influence to silent containment. They didn't want to destroy you. Destruction would trigger global destabilization, something they feared more than your awakening itself. What they wanted was delay, to keep you from reaching the frequency peak that would make their structures irrelevant. To them, you were not an enemy. You were an inevitability they weren't ready for. So they began targeting the one thing they believed could fracture your emergence, your perception of yourself. If they could cloud your inner compass, obscure your identity, or distort your sense of worth, they could slow your evolution enough to maintain control. Most people collapse when their internal narrative is compromised. But you aren't most people. Doubt doesn't swallow you, it activates you. Confusion doesn't weaken you, it forces clarity. And isolation doesn't diminish you, it concentrates your frequency into something more potent than before. The architect watched this unfold from a distance. While other factions moved against you, he realized something extraordinary. Your peace signature, a stabilizing field he once believed was passive, had begun to exhibit offensive properties. Not aggression, not force, but correction. Whenever someone attempted to manipulate your path, Their own instability intensified. Whenever someone tried to use you, their hidden fractures surfaced. Whenever someone tried to dim you, they faded instead. This was the moment he understood the true nature of your blueprint. Your peace is not gentle. It is precise. It is surgical. It is evolutionary. It forces authenticity in everyone around you. Anyone out of alignment collapses under their own contradictions. Anyone in resonance rises with you effortlessly. You don't punish. You don't retaliate. You don't even intervene. You simply exist, and existence alone becomes the filter. The council, recognizing how dangerous this was to their constructed hierarchies, decided to escalate. They deployed what they called a narrative interference field, an energetic distortion intended to make you question your intuition, reinterpret your memories, and suppress your prophetic insight. This wasn't done through technology. It was done through engineered experiences, strategically placed people, and emotional traps designed to mimic karmic chaos. But what they miscalculated was your emotional architecture. They assumed your sensitivity was a weakness. They assumed your empathy was exploitable. They assumed your history made you fragile. Instead, every emotional disruption only awakened new layers of your blueprint. The heartbreaks sharpened your discernment. The betrayals activated your intuition. The isolations expanded your consciousness. The losses deepened your compassion. And the setbacks strengthened your sovereignty. You didn't just resist the interference. You absorbed it and transformed it. You became the kind of being who could read a person's true intentions before they spoke. You developed the ability to sense misalignment instantly. You felt dishonesty like static in your field. You recognized soul resonance before names were exchanged. Soon, the council realized they were dealing with something outside their doctrine. Their power structures rely on predictable psychology, but you had evolved beyond the limits of human emotional mapping. You had entered a frequency band they traditionally associated with ancient prophets, incarnated guides, and astral architects, beings whose emergence has historically preceded paradigm shift. This is when the architect made a decision he had avoided for years. He revealed your existence to a select few within Project Saraphim who had the capacity to understand without interfering. These were analysts, mystics, scientists, and strategists, people who recognized you not as an anomaly, but as a catalyst. They were tasked with observing the next stage of your awakening, one that seemed impossible even to them: the stabilization of your global field. Here's what they discovered. When you healed, the world healed with you. When you forgave, certain collective tensions weakened. When you set boundaries, entire regions experienced conflict decline. When you aligned with your purpose, global consciousness rose. It wasn't that the world followed you. It was that you and the world were entangled in a way the council never intended. The most startling revelation came when they analyzed a spike in your frequency after a major personal breakthrough. They noticed that your field extended far beyond physical proximity. It reached across communities, networks, demographics, touching people who never met you, calming storms you didn't know existed, and altering dynamics you never witnessed. You had become a node in the global consciousness grid, a stabilizer whose influence traveled through emotional, psychological, and spiritual channels. The council knew then, you weren't a threat to their system. You were the replacement for it. And the architect knew, you were approaching the threshold they had feared, the moment when your peace blueprint would stop reacting and start radiating as a fully awakened frequency. What no one in the council predicted, not even the architect, was how quickly your final activation would arrive. They assumed you needed years of preparation, countless initiations, or a monumental external event to trigger the full expression of your blueprint. But that assumption was built on their limited understanding of human evolution. Your emergence wasn't dependent on circumstance. It was dependent on readiness, and readiness is an internal phenomenon. When your soul decided it was time, everything shifted instantly. The final activation didn't look like a lightning strike, a prophetic dream, or a dramatic revelation. It was more subtle, an internal click, a sensation like clarity crystallizing inside your chest. A heaviness dissolved, a silence expanded, and suddenly, without warning, your field synchronized. Your mind, intuition, emotions, and spirit aligned into a unified frequency for the first time. No fragmentation, no interference, no distortion, just pure coherence. This coherence was so powerful that it rippled outward, disrupting every system that had tried to contain you. The Council's emotional traps lost their effect. Their behavioral predictions failed. Their energy mapping algorithms broke. The narrative interference field, designed to destabilize your self-perception, collapsed entirely. None of their tools could touch you anymore because your frequency didn't mirror the human spectrum they were trained to manipulate. You had transcended the architecture of influence. What unfolded next was unprecedented. Everywhere your energy had been restricted began to unlock. Memories resurfaced, not the traumatic ones but the ancient ones. Your identity, once fragmented for survival, started to reassemble. You felt it, the old self falling away like a discarded skin, revealing the version of you that existed before conditioning, before interference, before the world attempted to teach you who to be. And as your inner structure reorganized, the outside world responded. People who once drained you simply disappeared from your life. Situations that kept you stuck dissolved without effort. Opportunities aligned themselves without manipulation. Support appeared from unexpected directions. Your life didn't improve gradually, it reorganized itself overnight. The Council watched this with disbelief. For decades they studied human transformation, but they had never witnessed a stability event triggered by a single individual. The architect, however, wasn't shocked. He had suspected this possibility from the moment he encountered your piece signature. What he didn't realize, until now, was the scale. Here's what they discovered in the days following your activation. Your frequency didn't just stabilize. It overrode fields around you. It rewrote emotional atmospheres. It neutralized aggression. It elevated consciousness in anyone who interacted with you. To the Council, that kind of influence was unthinkable, not because it was dangerous, but because it was uncontrollable. It didn't operate on fear, hierarchy, or compliance. It didn't benefit power structures. It didn't create dependency. Your presence generated the very thing their systems were designed to prevent. Autonomous humans capable of perceiving truth without mediation. In private meetings, they began referring to you by a name that was never meant to reach the outside world. The Stabilizer. The first human in modern history whose emotional resonance harmonized others instead of influencing them. The first blueprint capable of restoring internal order to external chaos. The first individual whose peace wasn't passive, it was catalytic. But what terrified them most was the realization that this influence was not local. Your field carried an echo effect. People you never met began experiencing clarity, resolve, intuition spikes, emotional breakthroughs, and shifts in direction that align them with their higher path. Not because you intended it, not because you tried, but because your frequency had reached critical mass. The architect made a choice in that moment. He severed his loyalty to the council. Watching them scramble to contain you awakened a truth he'd ignored for too long. Systems built on fear cannot coexist with beings built on coherence. And you, fully activated, embodied coherence in a way he had never seen. If humanity was ever going to cross the threshold into a higher consciousness era, it wouldn't be through policies, technologies, or control grid. It would be through individuals like you, walking catalysts, emotional architects, harmonic disruptors of old paradigms. He wasn't alone. Others across governments, think tanks, research institutions, and spiritual networks began to feel your resonance. It was subtle at first, a pull, a memory, a recognition that something ancient had reawakened. They couldn't identify the source, but they sensed a shift in the collective field. Anxiety softened, confusion cleared, new ideas emerged, old systems cracked, and the people who had been starved of meaning felt direction again. You had become the blueprint Bill Gates sought, the stabilizer the council feared, and the anomaly the architect finally understood. Not because of what you knew, but because of what you are. A living frequency correction. A rebalancer of emotional ecosystems. A quiet revolution disguised as a single human life. Your emergence won't be televised. It won't be announced in headlines. It won't be documented in classified reports. But it will be felt. In relationships. In communities. In collapsed systems. In rising movements. In every place where chaos turns to clarity without explanation. This is your final truth. You are not here to fix the world. You are here to anchor a frequency that makes the world remember how to fix itself. And now that your blueprint is active, nothing, not governments, not councils, not interference fields, not fear, can prevent the radiance that follows.